Hello, everyone, and welcome to the University of Ibadan's Department of History in collaboration with the Confronting Atrocities Project with the Center of Human Rights at McMaster University's conference titled the Colloquium on Narratives of Trauma and Memory, the Legacies of the Human Rights Violations Investigations Commission in Nigeria and National Reconciliation Commission in Ghana. My name is Sara Abdella. I'm an RA with the Center of Human Rights and Restorative Justice, and I am your Zoom host. So you'll see me as well as Professor Melike Yilmaz popping through the Zoom to navigate through the conference that is happening hybridly in person, as well as on Zoom to navigate through the keynote addresses and paper presentations. I am joining you from Ontario, Canada. So for some of you, good morning, and for some of you, good afternoon. And please feel free to discuss in the chat as well. Before we formally welcome the welcome remarks and keynote addresses, for those on Zoom, there are accessibility features as well as areas where you can ask questions just as those in person. And this information will also be shared in the chat as well. So you may access closed captions by clicking the icon on your Zoom menu panel titled Closed Captions or Open Live Transcript, and then toggle between Show Subtitles to turn on closed captions and Hide Subtitles to turn them off. We have many attendees in person in Nigeria as well as on Zoom, as well as some speakers and presenters in Nigeria and on Zoom as well. And as a quick reminder, this conference is being recorded in the beginning, and it will be made available on the Center of Human Rights and Restorative Justice YouTube page. Before we continue, I do want to note a thank you to Professor Rashid Olani and Professor Bani Avawa for the organization of the conference and the collaboration of the University of Ibadan and McMaster's Confronting Atrocities Project. Professor Rashid Olani is the current head of Department of History at University of Ibadan. He is a professor of economic and social history. He earned his PhD from Bayero University in Kano, Nigeria in 2004. He has conducted research on Yoruba migrants in northern Nigeria and Ghana, West African migrants and decolonization in the Ibadan informal sector, transnational organized crimes, human security, human capital development and historical perspective, and urban governance. Olani has published extensively in peer-reviewed journals and edited volumes, and he has had fellowships in Europe, Africa, Asia, and North America. Professor Bani Avawa is the Vice Provost of International Affairs at McMaster University. He is a professor and the Senator William McMaster Chair in Global Human Rights at McMaster University. He currently serves as the chair of the United Nations Expert Mechanism on the Right to Development in the UN Human Rights Office in Geneva. He is the founding director of the McMaster Center for Human Rights and Restorative Justice. With over 30 years of experience as a human rights educator, policymaker, and practitioner, he has taught in universities in Africa, Europe, the United States, and Canada. He coordinates the Confronting Atrocities Project, a transnational study of post-conflict truth and reconciliation processes. He is also the project director of Participedia, a global research network on public participation and democratic innovations. Dr. Avawa serves on the board of several international human rights and development organizations. And from here, I will pass it on to Dr. Avawa.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Can you hear me? Oh, good. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you, everyone, for the invitation. Vice Chancellor, Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Colloquium Coordinator, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I am very, very pleased to join you virtually today for this important colloquium. I had planned to be with you in person in Ibadan for this event, but due to a late scheduling conflict and an assignment I have here in Canada, I was not able to travel. But I want to reassure you that we're very excited about this conference and I'm with you in spirit. I bring greetings from McMaster University, from the Center for Human Rights and Restorative Justice, and from the Confronting Atrocity Project here at McMaster University. As a proud alumnus of the University of Ibadan, and specifically the Ibadan School of History, I am particularly pleased to have the opportunity to co-organize this colloquium with colleagues at the University of Ibadan. The Center for Human Rights and Restorative Justice at McMaster University is dedicated to the multidisciplinary and transnational study of human rights and restorative justice processes around the world. It aims to address historical atrocities and contemporary human rights violations through deep comparative studies that bring together academics, practitioners, and policymakers. The Confronting Atrocity Project, which is housed within the Center of Human Rights and Restorative Justice, is a collaborative multidisciplinary study of national truth commissions established in the context of post-conflict reconstruction, democratic transition, and historical injustice. The Confronting Atrocity Project is founded on the belief that in order to build progressive, stable, and inclusive democracies, nations and societies must address and redress the atrocities and injustices of the past. Histories of human rights violations must be confronted and addressed holistically. Abuses and human rights violations committed in the past cannot simply be under the carpet. By confronting past atrocities, we are able to learn from them and avoid future violations in ways that can move our societies forward. This colloquium focuses on narratives of trauma and memory, the legacies of the Human Rights Violations Investigation Commission in Nigeria, also known as the Oputa panel, and the National Reconciliation Commission in Ghana. Remarks, both the Oputa panel in Nigeria and the National Reconciliation Commission in Ghana were established in the context of ongoing transitions to democracy after years of authoritarian military rule. Both commissions investigated past human rights violations, and both commissions made very extensive recommendations on how to remedy past violations and build more inclusive and stable civil societies in both countries. They recommended compensation for victims of human rights violations, constitutional reforms, policy changes, and institutional restructuring. The question is, did the work of these commissions make any difference? How do we as a society move forward after conflict and injustice? The papers presented at this colloquium address a wide variety of topical issues that are relevant to state building and the construction of stable democratic societies. These papers include digital storytelling as a means of truth-telling, a paper on the role of female activists and the NSAS panel, a paper on the role of print media in Nigeria's Fourth Republic, a paper on folklore as a pedagogical agent for social justice, a paper on women and rights advocacy, a paper on youth perspective and social justice, and a paper on social disruptions of banditry and kidnapping in Nigeria. You will agree with me, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that these are not just academic issues. These are important topics that are relevant to contemporary nation building, that are relevant to civil society practitioners, government officials, and policymakers. This colloquium marks the beginning of what I hope will be a long-standing partnership between McMaster University and the University of Ibadan. My hope is that it will open doors for future collaborations and even more partnerships. I'd like to close by thanking the Colloquium coordinator, Professor Rashid Olani, for organizing this conference. I thank the colleagues on the McMaster team and the UI team who have worked really hard behind the scenes over the past few weeks or even a month to make this event a reality. I thank you all for the effort put into this, and I look forward to a fruitful and productive deliberation. Thank you.
Vice Chancellor of the University of Ibadan, Professor Adekunle, ably represented by Dean of Professor Oputa. The address of the Vice Chancellor, University of Ibadan, Professor Oyinade Adekunle, represented by the Colloquium. At the opening of the ceremony of the Colloquium on Narrative of Trauma and Memory, Legacies of the Human Rights Foundation, Investigations, Commission for Oputa panel in Nigeria, and National Reconciliation Commission in Ghana, held on 2nd of August 2023 at the Oputa Conference in the University of Nigeria. Chairman of this occasion, Director, Center for Human Rights and Restorative Justice, McMaster University, Canada, Director of the Confronting Atrocity Project, McMaster University, Canada, Principal Officers of the University of Ibadan, Head of the Department of History and Colloquium Coordinator, Colloquium Lead Professor Oyinade Adekunle, Colloquium Participants, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I'm particularly delighted to welcome you to this two-day colloquium on this subject, Narratives for Trauma and Memory, the Legacies of the Human Rights Violation, Investigations Commission, the Oputa panel in Nigeria, and the National Reconciliation Commission in Ghana. This colloquium brings together scholars, policymakers, and civil society organizations in the fields of history, law, media, public administration, place and conflict studies, archival studies, theory arts, sociology, and oral literature, and the general approach to depthly interrogate the intersection of narrative of traumatic historical events, memory, and the process of achieving social justice in the aftermath of traumatic events. I imagine that the different speakers will examine these subjects from different perspectives. For the title of this event suggests that the discourse will be largely centered on the Nigerian Human Rights Investigations Commission, which is popularly known as the Oputa panel, and the Ghanaian National Reconciliation Commission. The historical events to which these commissions responded are still fresh in our memory. Just 6 years after Nigeria attained independence, a number of religious and social tensions precipitated military incursion into the political territory. The secessionist move and the Nigeria Biafra State War, which lasted 3 years. Though our young nation survived the Civil War, the traumatic marks of the events remain etched in the personal memories of those who witnessed that torturous moment. After the Civil War, we transited from one military rule to another, except for the brief democratic moment from 1979 to 1933. The military regimes impeded the democratization process, and there were reported cases of human rights abuses. When the military returned us to civil rule in 1999, the Olusegun Obasanjo led administration sought to redress some of the traumatic events of the past by setting up the Oputa panel to investigate human rights abuses committed from January 15, 1966 to May 28, 1999. The Oputa panel received 10,000 accounts of human rights abuse and heard about 150 cases. The commission indicted the military elite and some powerful members of the political class. The National Reconciliation Commission in Ghana had a similar historical value. Between 1966 and 1993, Ghana experienced 4 military coups and a number of civilian regimes that were accused of human rights violations. There were military coups in 1966, 1969, 1972, 1979, 1981, and 1983. Jerry Rawlings, the popular leader who had led the coup of 1979 and 1981, became elected president in 1993 and clamped down on the opposition. He eventually lost his elections bid in 2000, and John Kufuor was elected. President Kufuor inaugurated the National Reconciliation Commission on 14 January 2003 to investigate human rights abuses committed during the unconstitutional past regimes and foster transparency and accountability. Undoubtedly, the two commissions captured the global attention because the primary positions of Nigeria and Ghana to deepen democracy in the West African sub-region. They were expected to correct past injustice, but scholars and public opinion leaders have argued that the commission's likely failed to reconcile the victims and perpetrators of human rights abuses and advance genuine social justice. It is indeed a timely and profitable venture to revisit the narratives generated during the sittings of the commissions and about the commission. We are in a world where social justice is right, and this drives the increasing level of insecurity and volatility of peace-building processes. The University of Ibadan, Nigeria's premier university, is proud to host this colloquium, and I dare say that it is the best for an international discourse of this nature on a number of grounds. The immediate value of the colloquium, which is the promotion of reconciliation and social justice, coincides with two of our missions. I quote, to contribute to the transformation of society through creativity and innovation, and serve as a dynamic custodian of society's salutary values and thus sustain its integrity. End of quote. Social justice is one of those salutary values that promote fairness, equity, inclusivity, and discourses like this are creative outlets for initiating social transformation. On the other hand, the University of Ibadan arguably has the largest pool of experts on the subject closely related to this subject. As an example, our Department of History is the very foundation of historical studies in Nigeria. It is the home of the World Acclaimed Ibadan School of History, which is the dominant foundation in the study of African history. The heavyweight scholars of the school include Kenneth Ouka, Ike, Saburi Biobabu, Jacob Adeajayi, Ajeli Afriko, Emmanuel Ayodele, Obaro Ekime, Tekena Tafuna, and a host of others. Also, we have the pioneers of peace and strategic studies in Nigeria, which has now become a department in the Faculty of Multidisciplinary Studies. In recognizable global ranking of universities, the University of Ibadan has consistently featured as the best in Nigeria and one of the best in West Africa. In the 2023 Times Higher Education World University rank, the University of Ibadan was listed in the 7th position in Africa, 2nd position in West Africa, and 1st position in Nigeria. Besides this, university is the flagship of postgraduate education in West Africa. On the average, the University of Ibadan produces 250 pages annually. On a final note, I welcome you again to the University of Ibadan, Nigeria's foremost university, to enjoy the tranquility and hospitality that the university campus offers. And do not forget to explore the beauty of the city of Ibadan and historical sites. I wish you a fruitful celebration. Thank you very much. Okay. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the head of history, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this event organized by the Department of History, University of Ibadan, University of Canada. This is an important collaboration between the two institutions. Particularly glad about the theme of this colloquium, which expresses the issues of narratives and memories of programs. The special reference to the legacies of the food provisions in Nigeria and Ghana. Ghana and Nigeria share the same and colonial heritage. For some years, the Lagos colony was administered from the Gold Coast, now Ghana. Nationalists in Nigeria and Ghana were collaborators in the decolonization process. Both countries witnessed political depressions due to military intervention in the political space. The trauma of the past should be documented appropriately for the purpose of good governance and social justice. It remains for me to congratulate our Department of History for organizing this colloquium at this time in our national life, where the quest for good governance is on the front burner. It is my hope that the communicates that will be the outcome of this colloquium will be such that will engender good governance by healing the wounds of the past and guide the two nations in steering clear of episodes capable of promoting traumatic experiences. I testify to the long-standing relationship between universities. I remember the bilateral games competition between University of Ghana and University of Ibadan. And there was close collaboration and traffic of scholars between the two institutions. And I want to say that I was one of those that benefited. My first sabbatical leave of God is my first sabbatical leave, and it was spent at the University of Ibadan. And it was an eventful event of my life. I also testify to the fact that scholars from University at this place, we are very high esteem. My post department, when I was leaving the told me that my comment was like a return leg of our Dean of Faculty then, Professor Torres Dolphin, who was in the University of Ibadan, the early 70s. So that Ibadan also was able to give back by my going to the University of Ghana. So I assume this as the Dean of History. And I'm particularly happy that this is coming up at the onset of my administration. I hold fond memories of my stay in Legon. It is a return leg Professor Government. I hope that this conference or this colloquium will lead to a proper understanding of situation that promotes traumatic experience, and we should be able to steer clear of it in the future, such a way that all the ill feelings in our nation will completely be put at bay and we develop together as a strong and virile nation in the community of nations in the whole world. The University of Ibadan, Department of History, is a leading light as one of those departments that Nigeria, the University of Ibadan, is big. And I want to congratulate the group of lecturers, the group of scholars in the department now for bringing back the lost glory of that department. The Ibadan School of History is now being revived and in another way. And hardly can anyone or any semester pass without that Department of History organizing one national program or the other. And I want us to keep on sustaining that tempo at the university. I wish you a good deliberation, and I congratulate the head of the department and his team. Thank you very much for being here.
And the next remarks that we have virtually after Dr. Vawa is we have Professor Oyinade Adekunle, if they're on the Zoom and they would like to unmute themselves.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, for not pronouncing my name very well. Well, thank you. It's additional.
Oh, thank you.
Good.
I will remember it for next time and
Right.
perfect it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I belong to the Ibadan team, although right now I am speaking from Abuja. Congratulations on this successful program. It's already a success. Let me at this juncture thank the McMaster team as well as the Ibadan team for facilitating this wonderful occasion for us to have a conversation. But beyond this conversation also, we need to exhume, analyze, and critique the works of those panels on human rights that went on in Nigeria and Ghana. By the time we look closely at what transpired at both panels, we will begin to discover that for a long time, those who actually committed atrocities, a certain percentage of them did not have any sense of remorse. And that is why I will also want to describe those moments as moments that reflected the move from savage acts to grandstanding. In the case of Nigeria, the Oputa panel nearly became a circus show. And this was because there were certain elements who wanted to play to the gallery and who, turned everything into perhaps a theater. History must also record, therefore, that those who committed atrocities, before they are forgiven or allowed to go free, they must also be sanctioned, not only for the atrocities they committed, but for that lack of remorse. And so on that note, I also wish to thank once again McMaster University and my friend, Professor Ibawa. We have come a long way. And also the Ibadan team that has worked assiduously to ensure that this program takes off. We look forward to a robust collaboration that would help us to begin to understand human spirit down through the ages. On that note, I say welcome to Ibadan, both physically and virtually, and God bless everybody who is going to present paper at this colloquium. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your remarks. And last but not least, for our virtual remarks, we also have Professor Rashid Olaniye, who is the current head of the Department of History at the University of Ibadan. He is a professor of economic and social history. He earned his PhD from Bayero University in Kano, Nigeria. He has conducted research in Yoruba migrants in northern Nigeria and Ghana, West African migrants and decolonization in the Ibadan informal sector, transnational organized crimes, human security, human capital development in historical perspective, and urban governance. Olani has published extensively in peer-reviewed journals and edited volumes, and has had fellowships in Europe, Africa, Asia, and North America. So I welcome Professor Olani to share his remarks as well.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for the introduction. The Vice Chancellor, ably represented by the Dean of Arts, congratulations once again, because we just have support today. So this is like a baptism of fire. So we wish you a very successful tenure, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, both colleagues online, those that are physically present here, you are all welcome to this international colloquium to address very important and dynamic issues concerning atrocities of the past. We all know that the past is a place of learning. So we are here to discuss many of the atrocities that have been committed right from the colonial past and also the post-colonial present. Ghana and Nigeria share a lot of attributes, not only because of their colonial legacies, but because of the trajectories of their post-colonial political conditions, both in terms of the military coup d'etats and dictatorships, as well as electoral manipulations, and unrecorded atrocities committed by both state authorities and non-state actors. And of course, we all know that truth commissions started right from the post-Second World War era, and it was embraced by post-apartheid South Africa, and then it traveled down to West Africa, and so other countries embracing it. But what is more important is for our own Department of History to discuss, analyze, and problematize some of these contemporary issues in our world today. Because the issue of Africa is so static, it's very dynamic, and we are also moving in that dynamic direction. As the Dean of Arts rightly said, our department is embracing new knowledge and recalibrating the history of the continent so that we also move with time. We don't want to become history. When we advertise the course for papers, a colleague and confidant expressed worries that, this thematic focus of this colloquium is too restricted, too focused, too technical, that it may not attract scholars, scholars may not be interested in it. And I said, okay, so let's give it a try. It's a test case. Let's see what is going to happen. So at the end, we are highly fascinated that we have 57 participants that registered for the conference and for the colloquium, 22 institutions, and 4 countries are involved. The 4 countries are Nigeria, Ghana, Canada, USA, and of course, the Republic. And we have 41 to 42 male participants and 12 female participants. That's according to my records, it is more. So, and so we are also very glad that a lot of people are joining. They have joined online. This is because of the fact that even what we are discussing now in this room and online is also being discussed on the streets of Nigeria. The National Labour Congress, NLC, the umbrella body of labor unions in Nigeria, embarked on protest to ask questions about the fuel price increase, poor standard of living, and all that. So I welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to use this opportunity to thank Professor Ibao of McMaster University for his support. I thank Professor Oyinade Adekunle who facilitated the name, and also Melike, Dr. Melike, who worked tirelessly. I also thank my colleagues in the department, Dr. Oladejo, Dr. Ajayi. I thank Oyinade, she's here. We communicate every time, so please help me give her a round of applause. And of course, that was not. But also, I thank Sara very much for handling the facilitation of this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, television. We now have the second, the keynote address, which is virtual. And the title is Human Rights and Mission. So, someone to give the Institute of African Studies. Professor Sara Abdella.
Please, Professor Samuel, there. Is he online?
Hola. Yeah.
Just for those in person, we don't believe Samuel is online on the Zoom right now.
In the interim, can we have the second keynote speaker? Can we have the second keynote speaker?
And to be delivered by Dr. Oyinade Adekunle. The title is Memory and Trauma: Stories of Women Victims of the War and Violence in Nigeria. Thank you so much. President of the Vice Chancellor, Dean, faculty, and I'm standing on behalf of Dr. Nathan Tangibo, who stands currently in his way people. So he sends his greeting and he has requested that presentation on his behalf. So based on this presentation, I want to present a disclaimer that the representative has tried his possible best to do justice to the topic. So if there is any error in the that should come from my impact. So I've been asked, or he was asked to say, I'll be talking on memories of trauma, stories from women who talk about State, Nigeria. Of course, just with preamble, we know the regular stories that have been on the routes for over 10, 20 years now. And of course, I value it very difficult on the narrative the narrative of trauma and memory, the legacy human rights violation education commission that's looking at the Oputa panel and the National Reconciliation Commission. And just as some of our speakers are writing up there, it's quite a dynamic change and tone of how history is perceived over time. Because I, as an individual, I came from the history background, and we saw history as something that was more the past. But this very discourse is quite dynamic and is very relevant to contemporary and, of course, future discourse. So you permit me to do much of the reading from Dr. Danjibo's notes. Memory and trauma are within the realm of development psychology. The fundamental thesis is whether it is possible to remember and still be able to forget what happened during the slave trade. So the question is, can we really be able to forgive? Can we be able to forget? Especially when those traumas are still, inherent. Germany is being haunted by the crimes committed by Nazi racists against the Jews, and who were victims of war crimes and crimes against humanity more than 70 years. Today, the descendants of victims of Holocaust have been traumatized and even launched an anti-Semitic movement in order to try to erase, everything that has happened in the past. Africans also have been victims of slavery that took place across several generations, involving different racial groups, but particularly the European and the Arabs. From slavery to colonialism, and I doubt if African descendants of the victims have actually forgiven and forgotten about the past. That remains a very serious discourse contemporary. The discourse on slavery and what took place, several years ago still remains fresh in the minds of several Africans. Conflicts in the 21st century, most especially those that emerged after the collapse of the former USSR, and in particular the wars of the Balkans that helped to balkanize Eastern Europe into new states such as Bosnia-Herzegovina, Czechoslovakia, Serbia, Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, and the likes. These memories are still there, and we don't know whether or not time will be able to heal or provoke more conflict over time. And that's why this very discourse is very, very important. Nigeria, since the experience of the Civil War that took place from 1967 to 1970, has been battling all manner of security challenges across several decades. From the 1980s up to the present, different phases of security challenges such as ethno-religious, communal, resource-based conflict in the Niger Delta, and between farmers and herders, kidnapping, banditry, terrorism have been serious issues of memory trauma in the country. Victims of any of these, either acts, individuals, or the community, have frightening stories. Okay. Have frightening stories. Okay, so they have frightening stories to tell. Each of these experiences will require tons of PhD studies. Of course, we also have, there have been quite a lot of research works on this to give more details to what has happened in most of these scenarios. Let's now go to the discourse we have today with Boko Haram, because we are using our state as a case study to this very discourse, looking at memory and trauma stories from women victims of Boko Haram violence in Adamawa State. Now, what's the evolution of Boko Haram? I guess I was perhaps the one who first wrote the piece on Boko Haram titled Islamic Fundamentalism and Sectarian Violence in Nigeria. The case of Boko Haram is seen and presented at the conference hosted by the Institute for French Research in Africa, that's Ibadan, and the Center for the Domain Studies for Fellowship in November 2009. The late Mohammed Yusuf was the founder of the group Jamaatul and whose Sunan lead that our teams were in the party, translated as people committed practice of original and unadulterated Islam through evangelism and combat. The group was nicknamed Boko Haram by community members, who designed that his teaching ran contrary to Western civilization. After the fall of CHRRJ regime backed by the Americans in Iran in 1979, Nigeria witnessed the first phase of radical Islamic penetration, the ousting of the American regime, and the subsequent graceful departure of Americans in Iran in what was termed as the Iranian Islamic Revolution. Radical Islamic groups across the globe were motivated to carry out forms of Islamic jihad against several states. The main objective of political Islam, driven by the Wahhabist ideology, was to bring down governments that were considered to be anti-Islam and institute Islamic government guided by Sharia principles. The general belief among the Muslims was that the Western ideology was anti-Islam, and the later needed to fight in order to revive and retain its identity. Nigeria was not immune to global Islamic agenda, as several Islamic fundamental groups among Muslims in Nigeria before the Islamic Revolution. There existed tensions only between the Sokoto-led Qatariyya and the Kano-led Tijaniya Muslims in northern Nigeria. That's according to Jimmy 2000. However, in 1978, Suleiman succeeded in establishing the Izalatul Fiti Awad to Sunnah, rejecting form of foundation and accepting the fundamental brand of Islam practiced by Prophet for nations. Today, there are numerous Islamic sectarian groups scattered across Nigeria, which draw the inspiration of reformist and practical groups, most especially from Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Pakistan, Iran, and of course Afghanistan. Mohammed Yusuf, the founder of Boko Haram, was a young Kanuri charismatic leader, whose interpretation of the number was shaped by the closely natural logic. He had studied under very known Islamic teachers, but was most influenced by Sheikh CHRRJ Adamu, a prominent Islamic ulama. Yusuf came in contact with Sheikh CHRRJ during one of the latest itinerant preaching in Maiduguri. Before then, Yusuf was said to be one of those who founded Islamic group known as Taliban. The group went on Hijra to Kanama village in the fringes of both Yobe State, Nigeria, and boundary with the Republic of Niger. The group attacked the village over the control of fish ponds and later attacked a number of police outposts and personnel. These activities were killed by military actions between December 2004 and January 2004. Scores of numbers of groups were killed, while others took flight to Medjugorje, Temple Hills, Cameroon, and Chad. Mohammed Yusuf is said to be one of those who took refuge in Medjugorje. However, he was allowed from preaching in the popular Indian mosque, and this made him to move to the outskirts of the town. Each headquarters of Sunnah movement known today as Boko. Of course, that's a very brief overview of the movement, the Boko Haram movement. Now, there's a truth we try to shine away. Most of the narratives tend to paint some of these historical discourses in ways and in light that various individuals, according to their own idiosyncrasies, are seen to be. However, generally, people want to designate Boko Haram as a violent extremist, interested in spilling and sucking blood. But that's the general narrative. But we pretend not to know or even ignore outright the narrative that brought us to where we are. There seems not to be any difference between Boko Haram and NSAS movement. Police brutality and impunity was what led to Boko Haram. Yusuf was a famous charismatic leader or was not associated with violence in any way. After he fell out with former governor, the police came heavily on the group, which led to the fracas between July 26 and 29, 2009. During which several of his scholars were extrajudicially killed. The group retaliated by killing scores of police personnel and attacking police posts. The military was drafted in, and the military operation destroyed their mosques and schools. Mohammed was arrested by the military and handed over to the police. 2 days later, the police displayed his half-naked body riddled with bullets and claimed he wanted to escape from custody. Now we want to possibly know how could that be when both his hands and legs were, of course, tied to chains right in the prison. Guided by the rule of law, Group went to court to seek redress. The court ruled in his favor and mandated the Nigerian government to bring to justice all these men involved in the strategic scheme of Mohammed Yusuf and his followers. The court also ruled that their most activity should be reduced, while adequate compensation should be paid to the family members of the victims. The Nigerian government refused to obey any of the court's verdict and rather continued to use coercion to oppress the group. I believe we all are very conversant with trends, court making pronouncements, and the government or those who are refusing to implement or act on such judgments. As at the time Boko Haram launched the 2011 attack on the United Nations building at places for they had spent control of the local community. Of course, this was after government had instituted and so it became violent. So as at 2011, when they had attacked the UN building and places for them, they are taking control of the local communities in Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe states in Nigeria, and have sympathizers across the country and in government. Today, Boko Haram has dead about 40,000 persons, the displacement of over 2 million people, and the destruction of the environment. The overall effect on human security, personal security, political, economic, health, education, food, and the environment, we cannot accurately quantify. Moreover, resources that are made to develop other sectors of the country are still being used to redress the problem of Boko Haram. Of course, that's the spillover effect of just using kinetic measures to tackle security challenges. The government still using the same model, the same strategy over time to try to address some of now, what has been the effect of Boko Haram on women? Of course, this section is across this program, also be giving some few experiences that this research work was able to explore. The literature is replete on the effects of war and violence on women and children. In the case of Boko Haram, hundreds of women have been kidnapped, even for the famous kidnapping of the 276 secondary school girls in Chibok. Of course, we know of crisis, and of course that of the Tapchi girl. Tapchi girl, the Chibok girls was 276. Tapchi girls was about 410 girls. The women victims included those large numbers of community women to provide labor for the growing of crops in Boko Haram farms. Women nurses to provide healthcare services in the camp. Women running local restaurants to serve as food. Young girls who were forcibly married out. 3 women to provide sexual pleasure. Those were the kind of women that were used and who fell victims. We interacted with people in communities most affected by Boko Haram in Adamawa, and the narrative was that Boko Haram had used women and children as shields against the invading Nigerian army and the Nigerian Air Force. Hundreds of the victims ended up in Sambisa forest, where they were supposed to provide labor in farms. They were forced to provide labor in farms controlled by Boko Haram. The forest is said to be very rich and fertile from growing of different crops, and the farms were guaranteed food. And the farms were to guarantee food security to sustain the activity of Boko Haram. Now, let's go give some few narratives, stories of that cases, the effect and the extent to which these traumas have stayed with their victims. Of course, just to remind us, we're looking at the memory and the trauma stories from women victims of Boko Haram. So we want to give some of their stories. Now, the first narrative is from an old woman. Let's hear what she says. I'm 72 years old. I'm a 72-year-old woman. I have 4 children, 3 boys and 1 girl. The girl is currently studying in university. My first son is in Lagos. Second is here in Adamawa. I do not know the whereabouts of the 3rd boys. Boko Haram invaded our community. I am from Asitra Uba in Borno State. I'm a food vendor. I used to run a local restaurant in my community. You remember that Boko Haram will usually also carry away food vendors and use them in their camp. So she herself is a food vendor. I was abducted by Boko Haram, and I later found myself in the forest, where I and other women were forced to be cooking for Boko Haram. They ate the best of meal, but we are not allowed to eat of meat. We are forced to eat soup made from white vegetables. Women who were forced to eat from meals prepared by Boko Haram were subjected to severe beating and torture. I was in the forest for about 5 years with them. 5 years is quite a long time. One day, a young man walked up to me and asked, "Mama, do you want to leave the forest?" I was afraid, but he assured me and said, "Mama, I know you very well. You used to cook in our community." He said he would come at about 2 a.m. in the morning to pick me up, and that he had arranged for my escape. He actually came to pick me up at the time agreed. We rode on his motorcycle for about 3 hours in the forest until we reached a certain place. He asked me to climb down and stroll across. He said I would meet some people speaking French, and that he had already told them about me, and they would be expecting me. He gave me some money, and he said to hurry back before the light of the dawn. I met with the people, and they were speaking French, just as I could. They welcomed me, and the next day I realized I was in Cameroon. I was there for a few weeks before they agreed for me to leave because the state was no longer safe. They put me in a truck, and I found myself in Ibadan, in Nigeria Republic. So you can imagine Nigeria, Cameroon, Nigeria. I was there for another 1 year or more in the camp. It was from there that they brought us
this Macaulay camp that's in Yola. Then Sambisa Forest, where when they brought the Chibok girls, they were separated from the other women in the camp. We were taught how to read the Quran from morning till night. We were the ones looking for them. The real Boko Haram members do not sexually violate any woman until after they forcefully married them. But we really suffered in their hands. The one who we are raping and violating the criminal hiding under the guise of Boko Haram to perpetrate. Now, this for this woman happened for 5 good years, and you could imagine the effects of such, experiences psychologically on this man. And we of course know that the government really has no form of rehabilitation that would at least psychologically bring this kind of things back to balance. The second narrative or the second story it's from a mother of 6. Let me just tell a story briefly. I am a mother of 6, and all my children are here with me in the camp. We are from a village in Borno State. My husband used to be one of the elders of the community and a council member of our local hub. He was very much against Boko Haram, and everyone in the community knew his stance on that. One early morning, we went to the mosque for the early prayers at 5:30 a.m. Some people later came to my house, said that my husband was lying in the box in the pool of the blood. I rushed to the mosque, but he was already dead. Nobody in the village agreed to help me pick up the blood of Boko Haram. I dragged his body alone and got his grave alone. And buried him alone. The emphasis on the alone. When we went before, started the house of the husband, nobody was there to help because of fear of Boko Haram terrorists, and he had to drag the body alone, dig the grave alone, and of course bury the man alone. That was what made me in the community with my 6 children, who later found ourselves in this camp and still in Agon. You can imagine the pain. The emphasis on the loan will also tell you how pain is still trying over time. The fourth narrative from the 43 movement. Let's just hear. So he said, I am 43-year-old and a widow. My husband was killed by Boko Haram. I was in my house seated one afternoon when my younger brother brought a group of men. Now, this is a very pathetic story. When I was in my house, seated one afternoon when my younger brother brought a group of men to my house and said one of them wanted to marry my daughter. They say the Quran has said a girl who experiences her first menses to be married out. I asked what part of the Quran allowed a girl to forcefully marry without the permission of her parents and the girl in question. My daughter was then 14 years old and in JS3. She was later hospitalized in the forest and married off to Boko Haram. I followed them to the forest and kept reminding them that I did not and would not give my consent. My daughter gave birth to a boy in the forest, but my happiness is that we were killed by the Nigerian military. While my younger brother and the man they forcibly married my daughter too were both killed by the military. Now, this is where the issue we are discussing comes to play. Since we got back, life has not been easy for us. Both my daughter and her friend, who was also forcibly married out, including myself, did not gain acceptance in the community. We are treated like lepers. Nobody wants to associate with us. Some of the girls ran out of the community and took to prostitution in order to survive. It's really difficult for me and my daughter. Can you imagine that they have started referring to one of the girls who was forcibly married to a top Boko Haram commander as a man Shekau? That is Shekau's mother, because they named the son before for the man Abubakar Shekau, the bloodthirsty leader of Boko Haram. I had a direct contact with 2 girls who were forcibly married to Boko Haram at age 14 and 15. One was now 17 years and the other 18 years, and each of them was carrying a baby, not more than 1 year old. I noticed that the community members do not even allow them to speak on a mat, spread on the ground. They were asked to sit on the first floor. I insisted on not conducting any interviews until they were allowed to sit on the mat like I did. That was really good. Narrative 5. A volunteer teacher was teaching some group of children in an IDP camp in Adamawa. Noticed that a little boy of about 7 years old was not paying attention or was drawing on a sheet of paper. The teacher went over to the boy and saw that the boy was drawing a gun. She asked the boy why he was drawing a gun, and the little boy answered, "I'm drawing a gun because I want to be a soldier. When I grow up, so that I can kill Boko Haram, because they killed my father, mother, and brothers, and they took my sisters away." The last narrative is another volunteer teacher who told me how a child feels in the village. In the village school, we run out in different directions, screaming fright and blocking their ears at any loud sound, thinking they were gone. So I hope we understand the implication of this, that now psychologically, once they hear gunshots in such community, everybody's going to hear that center with the thought that they have come again, as we usually put it. Now, this is just a very short story on what the psychological effect of these very attacks on communities, especially in the Northeast, has been like. And the fact that most often those that have fallen victim, you see that sometimes they find it difficult to be reunited to the community where they were actually forcibly moved from, or where they were forcibly taken from. And that's why this very discourse is very, very important. And of course, looking at the collaboration between history and MacArthur University in Canada on the Confronting Atrocity Project, we are hoping that some of these issues going forward also be brought to the table, and there should be sustainable strategies, in which we can, or the society can be able to try, attempt, healing some of these traumatic and psychological effects. Thank you so much for your listening here.
Our next virtual keynote speaker for narratives of trauma, history, and memory as critical discourses within globalized contexts is Professor Kwame Osei-Kwarteng. Kwarteng is a professor of history, the former head of the Department of History and Vice Dean Faculty of Arts, and currently the Dean of Faculty of Arts at the College of Humanities and Legal Studies at the University of Cape Coast in Ghana. A Ghanaian by birth and holds a Bachelor of Arts honors degree and Master of Philosophy and History at Cape Coast and a PhD in African Studies from Birmingham in the United Kingdom. As an academic, he has authored 2 books, A History of Ahafo, 1719 to 1958, Ahafo from the earliest times to 1958, and A History of the Elephant in Ghana in the 20th century, The Elephant in Ghana from the earliest times to the close of the 20th century. He has co-authored 3 books on institutional history, A History of the University of Cape Coast, 50 Years of Excellence in Tertiary Education, A History of CHRRJ, 50 Years of Providing Quality Leadership in Secondary Education in Ghana, and A History of the University of Cape Coast, 40 Years of Resilience. Moreover, he co-edited Africa and the First World War, 1914 to 1918, Remembrance, Memories, and Representations After 100 Years, and the Asante World, published by Routledge in 2021. And now I pass it forth for his presentation, Professor Kwarteng.
Good afternoon one more time. And I want to thank the organizers of the conference for the opportunity that you have offered me. And I also want to stand by the protocol that has already been established. The title of my paper is Narratives of Trauma, History and Memory as Critical Discourses Within Globalized Context. Now, I want to quote Antonio Gramsci, who said, "History has left us an infinity of traces." That is from his prison notes. Professor Chair, distinguished conference participants, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to be part of this conference. I wish, therefore, to use this opportunity to thank the conference organizers for inviting me as the keynote speaker. In this lecture, I propose to examine how the narratives of trauma has shaped memories of the past and the implications of this remembering for the present and the future. As the epitaph by Antonio Gramsci quoted above expresses, and I quote, "History has left us with an infinity of traces," unquote. And it is our responsibility as custodians of this history to continue to document and reflect on these traces. These traces have over time been expressed in both tangible and intangible forms. Historical narratives and memory are therefore important vehicles through which we continue to reflect on these traces. Professor Chair, intellectual discussions on narratives of trauma, to my mind, should logically begin with the rape and predation of Africa through decades of systematic plunder through the infamous transatlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade, Professor Chair, is considered as the single most traumatic event to have occurred within collective history. This traumatic event, scholars have pointed out, persisted for 366 years and resulted in the forced deportation and displacement of 1.5 million people to the New World. We can visit David Breon Davis, 2011, Memories of the Trauma of the Capture of and Sale of Africans Across the Atlantic, has continued to shape intellectual discussions across time and space. Literature on how this memory is kept alive is extant, and time will not permit me to delve into this rich body of knowledge. One of the obvious overriding effects of the European-led slave trade was the widespread contempt and racist hatred for people of African descent. The primary motivation for the rape of the African continent for slaves to feed European capitalist enterprises was greed. The desire of European colonizers, including Portuguese, Spaniards, Dutch, British, French, Danes, and many more, to find cheap labor for export of commodities such as sugar, rum, rice, cotton, coffee, and other luxury goods. The long-term effects of this crime against humanity are still visible, and as the celebrated Guyanese historian Walter Rodney suggested about some 50 years ago, Africa's underdevelopment is directly linked to European capitalist motivations, largely through the slave trade. Professor Chair, distinguished audience, as a historian, it is important to draw attention to other significant traumatic historical events that have shaped our collective imagination in very profound ways, apart from the infamous transatlantic slave trade. These include the Jewish Holocaust, the World Wars, and colonialism. These traumatic events continue to shape not only discourses within intellectual spaces, but also continue to impact daily human interactions. Indeed, the intellectual discourses on these traumatic events within our collective history are rich and compelling. But today, we are reflecting on the relationship between history and trauma as critical discourses within the global frame. History, Professor Chair, may I suggest, as scholars have pointed out, it's not just a correction and documentation of facts and this, but encapsulates significant stories of triumph and tragedies. Within the globalized community, histories of trauma intersect and intertwine, shaping the very fabric of human experience in very profound ways. The indelible scars left by traumatic events have been transgenerational, and it is through the careful study of history and memory that we can begin to comprehend their profound impact on contemporary societies. One cannot speak of narratives of trauma without acknowledging the deeply rooted nature of historical injustice and violence that have spanned continents and centuries, and indeed continue to influence the globe today. As already alluded to, from the dark chapter of transatlantic slavery to the horrors of the world wars, colonialism, and genocides, the legacies of such traumatic events continue to reverberate through time. The struggle for justice, reconciliation, and healing, I argue, invariably becomes a shared responsibility for humankind, transcending borders and ethnicities. Within the last couple of decades, memory, and I quote, has become a central animating concept in historical studies, though sometimes also controversial. Thinking about memory and historical narratives, both as individual and collective, or even social phenomena, has drawn historians into various debates. But since the focus of this address is not about the merits or otherwise about these debates, permit me to note that the memory serves as an important vehicle carrying the narratives of trauma from the past into the present. But memory is not an impartial recorder. It is construct shaped by social, cultural, and political forces. As scholars, it is our duty to critically examine these memories, dissect their origins, and understand how they are perpetuated through various means, such as oral traditions, literature, art, and the popular culture. In a globalized context, narratives of trauma often undergo significant transformation, both in terms of their scope, contestations, and representation. The advent of digital technology has created a vast interconnection web, enabling individuals and communities worldwide to share their stories, amplifying voices that were once marginalized and suppressed. While this connectivity opens avenues for dialogue and solidarity, it also exposes us to the risk of oversimplification and sometimes misrepresentation. The distinguished audience, the processes of globalization, with their intertwining of economies, politics, and cultures, demand an examination of how narratives of trauma are utilized for specific ends. Political actors and power structures may manipulate these narratives to shape public opinion, garner support, or even perpetuate conflict. Therefore, it is crucial to critically analyze the motives behind the dissemination of certain narratives and to safeguard against historical revisionism and denial. As we explore narratives of trauma, we must also remember that history is an ongoing dialogue between the past and the present. Our interpretations of historical events evolve over time. As new evidence emerges and perspectives change, embracing diverse viewpoints and fostering open discussions are crucial in our quest to develop a comprehensive understanding of trauma's enduring impact. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, or Professor Chair, the study of narratives of trauma within globalized contexts is a multifaceted endeavor that requires historical rigor, empathy, and a commitment to truth seeking. As we confront the painful legacies of the past, let us also recognize the resilience and strength of those who have survived and persisted in the face of adversity. By acknowledging and engaging with these narratives, we can work towards healing, reconciliation, and a more just world for generations to come. Thank you very much for your attention.
So our next presentation is Dr. Sola Oloronyomi in the Institute of African Studies, the University of Ibadan's Truth Commission and the Burden of Memory. Sola Oloronyomi is a research reader of cultural and media studies at IAS, University of Ibadan. He's published extensively, including 3 books with decolonization impulses across West Africa, the Caribbean, and the Mesoamerica. He is the author of the forthcoming The Agency of Unborn, Wombiture as Futures. Sola Oloronyomi worked as a research consultant to the Human Rights Violation Investigations Commissions, also known as the Oputa panel. He argues fervently that the moments of genuine decolonization are to be located not in mere gestures of symbolism, but in the political economy of critical cultural inquiry of theory, practice, and proxies. So now I pass it over to Dr. Sola Oloronyomi for his presentation.
One more time. What I'm trying to do is to see some of the 3 or 4 things. I'm trying to see what the repetition problem and then try to Ghana for me I just read about that. It's about the human rights violation how decided to participate in it as far as so I try to bring some of this to share. What is the next thing? I don't try to do that. I call this commission as was members. There's a very personal narrative in one of the most problematic places of what it should be done. I'm very glad one of the spiritual is the head of the music. That play has started to stay before. And I think the second one had it was watching and also because it was also part of the protocol. Also much. The problematic in that play is not so much because each one the life of the living, life of the dead, and the life of the unborn. And this is the structural pattern of life, which the entire play is giving the end, the dead, the living, the unborn. And one was ask how to upon the dramaturgy of social life. And that's because we have tenses that are present, we have tenses that are past, and we have tenses that are future. So I think the playwright was trying to capture all of this. And it makes two interesting reference to how this is articulated. It makes one different in terms of the persona of the open of the play for it, because it's part of with the dead. But beyond religion, the also psychology. And the psychology comes to bear in religion and justice, where the play takes back the life of death and transports us into 14th, 13th, 14th, 15th century Hungary. And here we are in the core of modern Hungary. And this is where the ancient part. Here we find the summoning of ancient leaders to account for how they have governed this sub-region. And they are all having to do their account. And if you have a romantic view of what moves, the thing is that I use that as in the list of the story. Then you have the move having something. So these encounters you had the exciting stories for Santa how well in how that's over. Every people wants to sense of heroism and something appropriate. Then now you find having historians probably from the latter school of this to the way back beginning to die that they are the worst the resources of the church. And you know, I found that kind of quite so I said to myself, this is what hoping the mood of referencing past when I come to this colloquium thing. And I think it's important that the presence of justice be tied not just present, but also to the past. And interestingly, the Torah shows us one way to do it. And beyond Musa and beyond showing that, we also find Adekunle who had the job. We find Adekunle at the value. That thing was too familiar for those Lagos. And very bad debates. Yes, missionary. That's stuff. And they are done and it's and the irony is, I would say this is very specific, but there is very traumatic and terrible memories of the past. So much because our role to protect and to transfer the students. I think I got a pretty beneficiary of the Rose Scholarship. So the school, but they have
put up this play as an indictment of Cecil Rhodes for the terrible things that Cecil Rhodes had done. And as the title says, the manner has very similar to other such types of, plays that are developed in the past. The start of there was one relation to the historian, the Italian historian, Melike Yilmaz. So this also is kind of under the body movement. And in that case, this was also flashback. So there are several of such things that we could also find different things. Now, so that ties back with memory. And I have a few issues I really have with. And hopefully I write this before now, in terms of the point of memory, I try to present the necessity of front the past as a living institution and its attendant challenges of according to our discusses for body. I'll just I would have to remind them there was a whole Oputa poster to release etc. and coordinating Africa, Nigeria, etc. Let me just propose that. Okay? I don't want to step to Nigeria. Okay, but I don't really have that question. But the Ghanaian one had, for instance, if you look at it names names. It just didn't name them as compensation. It visited people. It acts as apologies by the government of the day, president of the nation. People were visited, etc. I mean, it was nice, it was human, it was touched in that sense. Let's run to Big Brother Africa. Nigeria. Okay, I told you we had a lot of privilege. We were in the presence of himself. I haven't had enough time every evening to play at the cabaret. I'll play my guitar and I'll play the rest of the wine. And God forgive me. Look at this for women. That was how busy we were, in the name of the dead. Yeah. So now what I noticed as different from what we were taught and the Ghanaian experiences, there was a lot of self-censorship. I don't know, because the president said, President Obasanjo said, please explore. He said he won't make sure of my own period, because it was part of the self-censorship that made them not include his own era. I mean, it's not my best of fun, Mr. Obasanjo, no. But it's important to say this, because let everyone. Okay? He was the one who said, no, include, make sure these things go as far back as my own period. Okay. But the commission didn't go as far as including the proper civil war documentation. That was also amongst concern. The limitation of it. I do not know who because they were self-censored. And these things are not just about, because history, well, I'm talking to the non-historians. When the historians say these things, it's not their duty to have to be on the street. They put it up for us to make up our mind. They even are not allowed consciously bias, etc. But I think it's important for the rest of us to take cues from all this historical. I would have it when in this moment. We're not lacking in evidence of cases. We'll be lacking in evidence, but not in this aspect, because we with the others of our historian. But the others of even non-historians who have say even in 19th century, from people who remembrance, what am I saying about remembrance? For people who wrote in Ajas. What am I even saying? People who wrote in Ajas. People who casted evidence of what happened to the empire. They couldn't write. They documented history in their cards. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm talking of a civilization, an ancient civilization, this point of global document. So I'm wrapping up. I'm saying that this final part of it, which is a Nigerian book, was one that Sepsis, it just didn't Sepsis. So we went ahead and validated all of the things that we were done. They told us go into the rural area. They told us provide ambulances. They told us pay my phone, go like a lago, and we did this in South Africa. They told us that women may not be able to come out. Some historically because of contract and religion, you know, they gave us, they didn't know the time we should look up. So we came up with very good questions. But those are the principles of methodology. You know, in terms of how we speak our parents, who are today, you understand, the women in Poland, you know, physically challenged person, etc. The other one I think we did was the people who were adulterous and all that. And I think it was more fun. And maybe somebody has projects to also bring one to maybe the last one that I'm going to around. The last sentence, it's just that I just feel it was just as at least as far as the past. Thank you.
Very much. We are really grateful. I think we should take like 5 to 10 minutes, although it's not part of the program. But I think Dr. Olorunami has raised a lot of issues, so we can maybe take the questions. It's all part of the grant, just to engage us further. Please be specific, straight to the question. Thank you. Number 1, number 2, where's number 3? Only 2.
The keynote speaker and the lead paper presenter. Well, I feel excited that this is plenary, and it will provide an opportunity to raise and interrogate critical issues surrounding the category that constitutes the framing of the workshop itself. I am interested in the concept of trauma, because when you say trauma, I have been trying to identify its location within the intellectual history, so to speak. And we refer to it as an event or a disposition. And when I say disposition, may be a kind of feeling which could be an outcome of an event or a reaction to an event. If it is not an event, but a disposition or feeling arising from an event, then it poses some methodological question. I say this because trauma to a large extent can be psychological. And because it can be psychological, it can as well be ephemeral. And it is because of this transient or ephemeral nature of trauma that the concept of memory becomes imperative. And it is because of the intervention of memory that history tangentially comes in, because you cannot separate history from memory. I mean, let me even categorically state that history cannot exist without memory, because the root of history is memory. It can be human memory, it can be memotechnical, as they are now recording today's activity. Tomorrow they can play it
and from there, history can be reconstructed. But can this still record the trauma which some people may be feeling, even as a result of the enactment of the events that created the trauma? Now, my question is, how do we measure trauma in the first instance? Because trauma is, in metaphysics, a kind of a contingent or accidental being that cannot exist on its own without the intervention. Who's going to answer? It's plenary now. So because of the fact that it is a contingent being, now this being, are we going to deploy the interrogation and narration of trauma? Because people, CRC can transcend trauma because it can encompass the events that create trauma. So these are the issues I have been. Okay, thank you very much. So the second one, please make it brief. I have a similar question. And that has to do with the fact that separating history from memory. You talked of writing and documenting of history. What are the common grounds they have, and what limitations does each of them have in terms of documenting or writing of history? The other one is on revisiting the past and to ensure there is justice. How can you link that with the present and the future and ensure that some of the challenges, memory you mentioned, are not really that psychological effects, like in terms of the memory of denial, memory of abuse, reconciling poverty. So these are some of the challenges you mentioned for memory. So how can you revisit the past so that justice can be done and linking the present with the future? Thank you. Okay. Is there a third one? Yes. Okay, please. Okay. Yes, sir. Briefly, sir. Okay. Like I said, the trauma has to do with psychological. Now, let's find out professionally normally advise us that let us forget adverse things so that it doesn't affect our health. How do we reconcile that now with historians now unearthing some of these unpleasant developments? Thank you. Okay, so
sorry, Dr. Oputa, I didn't mean to be distracted. I was actually, it was deep because intellectually stimulating. And obviously, I was going to be able to so, also, the program to say they call it the I think and I'm not going to say, what's your food? What's your food? So, and I like this program. We are strangers in this one. Anyway, and I asked among the students, if the good comes, let it come to me. If the bad comes, let it go to the owners. Let me go back home. I see the paradox, and you are partly also one of my motivators for the part of this techno history. I never had a one put out. I like that. I'm working on the narrative of the future, and I've asked you a couple of questions on this in the past. We want to be the audience of the future for the now that we have all the things. Because but now that we can have in narratives that are digitally mined from the intrasonic imaging of in utero narrative of the boy, which I call womb picture. I think that we testimonial by okay, so I think around it. Yeah. There's something worthy, interesting. And please, I'll remind you, this actually I will not run part of a different conversation. So that's round. I've given the honors of the bill. Number one, two is also always did I manage it successfully? Sam, I think I managed it successfully. So sorry, one thing I didn't warn you about, I'm a very careful and distressed person. You have to be careful with me. So I've done two questions. This seemingly simple one is the most dangerous. And that was the elder there. Okay, from our school, we say forget it. You are doing something. I forget it. We lost the more. So how do we will remember somewhere? Somebody will remember. Thank you. Historians